Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, witnesses, for your testimony today. Sometimes it's hard to see the forest from the trees, and I'll just leave that like that. I will ask you if anyone on the panel has an opinion about the pervasive anti-regulatory environment that has been perpetuated over the years, and whether or not it has had an impact on the FAA's ability to promulgate rules in this UAS environment. Does anyone have an opinion about that?
My opinion, sir, is it has not. We have.
There is no anti-regulatory environment that we exist under at this time? Or
We work very.
Would you agree with me on that?
We work very closely with the regulators. If we don't have regulations under which we can fly or permission to fly, we don't fly. This industry doesn't scale. The site doesn't benefit from the technology.
Well, I understand. My question goes to the regulatory environment that exists at this time, and I guess you would disagree that we have an anti-regulatory environment, but I'm sure that others agree with me that we do have an anti-regulatory environment generally. And my question is, how does that, if it does, impact the promulgation of rules in this space? But let me, and you take your comments, you're well noted on that. What about the incessant budget cutting, including the FAA's budget over the years? Has that fact impacted the FAA's ability to promulgate rules in this UAS space? Anyone have an opinion on that? And I guess no one does.
Actually, sir, I'll take the opportunity to thank the subcommittee, because we've seen actually additional resources provided to the FAA in order to move forward with this regulatory environment. I thank the subcommittee for that.
After the budget has been cut, you've seen resources added.
Yes, sir.
To try to equalize.
Earl Lawrence can speak to that. I'd also be happy to provide information for the record.
Okay, well, I'd love to see it, and I'm sure the American people who are thoughtful might want to see whether or not the resources we are providing to our agencies, including the FAA, during these times of austerity, have any impact on its ability to keep up with progress. I don't see any way that that it cannot have an impact. That's my personal opinion. But I will ask Mr. Ball, sir, you mentioned in your testimony that during a recent hurricane, you were able to dispatch drones to Texas and help their utility with coming up with assessments as to damage. And you could have done more if the regulations had allowed you to do so. What regulations, other than the being able to see the drone in operation, what other regulations impacted your ability to not use drones as much as you would have wanted to down there?
Yeah, I think it was just as, well, one thing, it was as simple as this was one of the first times that drones were used in a mutual assistance sense. So there is some learning there. That's why I said when we, in the following month, when we did the same thing in Georgia, we had learned from Texas, but some of it was just waiting on waivers, waiting on permissions.
And these kinds of common sense, practical realities are impacted by our budgeting decisions here in Washington, D.C. I just wanted to make that point. And does anyone have any idea whether or not the proposed tax cuts that are working their way through Congress will have any impact on the ability of the federal agencies to operate efficiently and effectively in this area? I see no one is responding. I think that these are, when I said sometimes it's hard to see the forest from the trees, that is exactly what I was referring to. And with that, I will yield back.
Mr. Sanford.
Thank you, Chairman.